My ex-wife left her fiancé the night before their wedding and knocked on my door at 11 p.m. And the second I opened it, 6 years of silence collapsed into a single sentence I never thought I'd hear again. She stood there in her rehearsal dinner dress, the woman I once married in secret and lost to her father's money. The girl next door who was my first love, my only love, the wife I let go because I loved her too much to ruin her. She was supposed to be marrying another man in the morning. Her fiancé was waiting. Her family was ready. The wedding was set, but she whispered the words that undid all of it. I can't marry him. Not when it's still you. I'm Samson Cole, a farmer's son who grew up poor in the shadow of her family's wealth. The man her father swore would never be good enough. But now the ex-wife who walked out of my life was standing on my doorstep at 11 p.m., begging her way back in. Why did she leave her fiancé the night before their wedding? What did she suddenly find out after 6 years of believing I never loved her? And when she says it's still me, after everything her family did to tear us apart, do I open my heart again or close the door for good? I didn't move. I couldn't. Rain dripped from the edge of my roof and landed on her bare shoulder, and she didn't even flinch. Her makeup was ruined. Her hair, pinned up for the party she'd run away from, was falling loose around her face. And her eyes, God, those eyes I'd spent 6 years trying to forget, were begging me for something I wasn't sure I could give. Grace, I said. Just her name. It came out rough, like I'd forgotten how to say it. Say something else, she whispered. Please, anything but that face. But I didn't have anything else, because standing in my doorway was the ending of a story I thought had closed forever. Let me take you back. I grew up on the wrong side of a fence. Literally. My father's farm pressed right up against the Whitfield land, and every morning I woke to the smell of wet soil and cow feed, while, across that fence, the Whitfields woke to marble floors and a housekeeper who called them by their last name. My mother died the day I was born, so it was just me and my dad, a quiet man with dirt under his nails and a Bible he never opened but never sold. We didn't have much. Some nights we had less than that. But we had a neighbor's daughter who didn't care about any of it. Grace Whitfield used to climb that fence when she was 7 years old, just to sit in our barn and watch me feed the chickens. Her mother would call her home, and she'd pretend not to hear. She said our farm smelled like morning. She said her house smelled like waiting. I didn't understand what that meant back then. I understand it now. We grew up side by side. Her, the rich girl in the white dresses. Me, the poor boy who patched his own jeans. And somewhere between chasing fireflies and hiding from her father, we stopped being just neighbors. By 16, I loved her more than I loved breathing. I remember the first time she kissed me. We were behind the old oak between our properties, the one struck by lightning years before but too stubborn to fall. She grabbed my collar, kissed me fast, then pulled back like she'd scared herself. That wasn't a mistake, she said, before I could speak. In case you're wondering. I wasn't wondering. I'd known since I was 10 that Grace Whitfield was the only good thing the world had ever handed me for free. But love like ours had an enemy, and his name was Richard Whitfield. Her father was not a loud man. That was the frightening part. He never raised his voice. He didn't have to. Money made his voice loud enough. He looked at me the way you'd look at mud, tracked across a clean floor. Not with hate, but with a quiet certainty that I didn't belong and never would. You're a nice boy, Samson, he told me once when I was 17, but nice boys stay in their lane. I smiled and said, yes, sir, and I hated myself for it. So we hid. For 3 years, Grace and I loved each other in secret. In barns and back roads and the space behind that broken oak. And when we turned 19, old enough, stupid enough, in love enough, we did the most reckless thing 2 poor and rich kids could do. We got married. No church, no guests. Just a tired clerk at the county courthouse and a $2 ring I'd bought with money I earned baling hay. Grace cried when I slid it onto her finger. I told her it wasn't much. She said, it's everything, and she meant it. For 3 weeks, she was my wife. 3 weeks. That's all the universe let me keep her. Some men get 50 years. I got 21 days, and I've spent every day since trying to make them last. Because Richard Whitfield found out. I still remember the phone call. His voice, calm as ever. "Come to my study, son. Let's talk like men." I should have run. Instead, I put on my only clean shirt and walked into that big cold house like a lamb walking to a butcher who's already sharpening the knife. He didn't yell. He poured himself a drink and slid a folder across the desk toward me. Inside were papers. My scholarship, the one I'd fought years to earn, my one ticket out of the dirt, had been quietly revoked. 3 job offers, gone. A recommendation letter, pulled. My whole future, dismantled piece by a man who'd done it without ever breaking a sweat. "I can end you before you begin," he said, "or I can open every door that I just closed." He leaned forward. "The choice is simple, Samson. Stay with her, and I make sure you're nothing your whole life. She'll watch you fail, year after year, until she resents the day she met you. Or you let her go, and I give you the future you were never born to have." I stared at those papers until the words blurred. "You'll ruin her by staying poor next to her," he said softly. "If you love her, really love her, you'll set her free." And that, right there, was the cruelest thing he ever did, because he didn't threaten me. He made me doubt myself. I was 18 years old with a dead mother, a broke father, and a wife who deserved a life I couldn't give her, and in that terrible moment, I believed him. I believed I was the thing standing between Grace and everything good. So I made a choice no one should ever have to make. I went to Grace the next morning. She was waiting under our oak tree, smiling, holding 2 cups of coffee, ready to run away with me and start our life. And I looked into the face of the only person who'd ever truly loved me, and I lied. "I don't love you enough," I said. "Not enough to do this." I watched the coffee cup slip from her hands. I watched her whole world crack down the middle. She asked me why, over and over, and I just kept lying, each word cutting a piece out of my own chest, because I knew if I told her the truth, she'd give up her family, her future, everything, for me, and I couldn't let her burn her life down for a farmer's son. So I let her hate me. It was the only gift I had left to give. I signed the annulment, I took Richard's money, his doors, his cold and poisoned mercy, and 1 week later, I left town on a bus at dawn, with 1 bag and a $2 ring I couldn't bring myself to throw away. 6 years. For 6 years I built a man out of nothing. Night school, long shifts, a body that ached and a heart that never fully healed. I became a structural engineer, a man who builds things that don't fall down, which is funny, because inside, I was still standing in the rubble of the one thing that did. I opened my own small firm, my name on the door. The farmer's son, respectable at last. I told myself I'd won. I told myself I'd stopped loving her. I told myself a lot of things. And then, on an ordinary rainy Tuesday night, 6 years after I broke both our hearts to save her, there was a knock on my door at 11 p.m. And when I opened it, there she was, Grace Whitfield, in her rehearsal dinner dress, soaked to the bone, trembling, the night before she was supposed to marry another man. "I can't marry him," she whispered, "not when it's still you." And every wall I'd spent 6 years building came crashing down in a single second. I stepped back to let her in. I don't know why. 6 years of telling myself I was over her, and all it took was one look at her shaking in the rain for my body to betray my heart. She stepped inside, and the smell of her hit me. Rain and roses, and something underneath that was just her. The same scent that used to live on my father's flannel shirt after she borrowed it. My throat closed up. "You're soaked," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. "Sit down, I'll get a towel." I fled to the hallway closet like a coward. I stood there with a towel pressed to my face, breathing hard, telling myself, "Don't. Do not let this woman back in. You know how this ends." When I came back, she was standing in the middle of my living room, looking at everything. My books, my drafting table, the life I'd built without her. Her eyes landed on the mantel, and they stopped. Sitting there, in a small wooden frame, was a $2 ring. She made a sound, not a word, just a small, broken sound, like something inside her had folded in half. "You kept it," she whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She turned to face me, and now the tears were coming freely, mixing with the rain still on her cheeks. 6 years, Samson. 6 years I thought you threw me away like I was nothing. And you kept a $2 ring on your mantle. Grace, why did you really leave? And there it was, the question I'd buried so deep I thought it would never claw its way back up. I opened my mouth to lie again. The same lie, the practiced one, the one that had protected her for 6 years. But she held up her hand. Don't. Please, not tonight. She reached into her purse with shaking fingers and pulled out an envelope. Old, yellowed at the edges, worn soft from being held too many times. My blood turned to ice. I knew that envelope. I'd written it the week I left. Everything. Her father, the threats, the folder, the reason I lied. I'd poured it all onto that page. Every truth I was too weak to say to her face. And then I'd been too much of a coward to send it. I'd left it in the Whitfield mailbox and run, half hoping she'd never read it, half praying she would. Where did you get that? I breathed. My mother, Grace said. Her voice cracked. She's had it for 6 years, Samson. 6 years. She took it out of the mailbox before I ever saw it. She hid it. Grace pressed the letter to her chest, like it might fly away. She gave it to me tonight, an hour before my rehearsal dinner ended. She looked me in the eye, and she said, I can't let you marry the wrong man, because of what we did to the right one. The room tilted. I reached for the back of a chair to steady myself. All these years, she was supposed to have hated me for a good reason. For the lie, for the leaving. But she'd hated me for nothing. She'd spent 6 years believing I stopped loving her, when the truth had been sitting in her own mother's dresser drawer the whole time. I read it in the car, she said. In the parking lot of the restaurant. In my wedding rehearsal dress. And Samson, she pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to hold herself together. I read that you left, because my father threatened your future. That you lied so I wouldn't give up my family for you. That you loved me so much you let me believe you didn't love me at all. She looked up at me, and her whole face was a question. Tell me it's true, she whispered. Tell me I didn't waste 6 years, hating a man who broke his own heart to save mine. And this time, I couldn't lie. I was too tired, too broken, too full of 6 years of silence. It's true, I said. The words fell out of me like stones. Your father showed me the folder. My scholarship, gone. Every door, closed. He told me I'd ruin you. That you'd watch me fail and grow to resent you. Resent me. I stopped, my voice shaking. I was 18, Grace. I had nothing. No mother, no money, no future. And I looked at you. You were so bright. You had everything. And I believed him. God help me. I believed I was the thing that would drag you down. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I hadn't cried in 6 years. I was crying now. So I let you hate me. I signed the papers. I took his money and I ran. And I built a life just to prove him wrong. And every single day of that life, I missed you like a limb. Grace crossed the room. She stopped inches away from me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her. Close enough to see the freckle above her lip I used to kiss when we were kids. You stupid, beautiful, impossible man, she whispered. You never got to decide that for me. You never got to decide I couldn't handle being poor with you. That was my choice. And I would have chosen you, in a heartbeat, in 100 lifetimes. I would have chosen the barn and the fence and the $2 ring over every marble floor in my father's house. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she could hear it. I would have chosen you, she said again. And then she was reaching for me, her hands sliding up to my face, and every cell in my body wanted to pull her in and never let go. But I caught her wrists. Gently, and I stepped back. She flinched like I'd struck her. Samson. No, I said. It was the hardest word I've ever spoken. Grace, listen to me. You said you loved me. You just said it. I do. God, I do. That was never the question. I let go of her wrists slowly. But it's 11 p.m., and in the morning, there's a man waiting for you at a church. A man who has no idea you're standing in my living room right now. She went pale. Preston, I said. You're engaged to him, tomorrow. And I know that letter changes everything about the past. But it doesn't erase him. It doesn't erase the fact that you ran here in the dark, in secret, the same way we did everything the first time. I don't care about. I care. My voice broke. Grace, the last time we loved each other in the dark, in secret, hiding from everyone, it destroyed us. Your father tore us apart because we gave him the shadows to do it in. I won't do that again. I can't do that again. She was crying now, really crying, and it took everything in me not to reach for her. If you want me, I said, you can't want me at 11 p.m. in the rain, where no one can see. You have to want me in the daylight. You have to look Preston in the eye and tell him the truth. You have to face your father, the real truth, all of it, what he did to us. And then, if you still come to my door, my voice dropped to a whisper, I'll never let you go again. I swear it on my mother's grave. You're asking me to choose you in front of everyone, she whispered. I'm asking you to choose me out loud, I said, the way I was too scared to choose you 6 years ago. For a long moment, she just looked at me. The rain drummed on the roof. The $2 ring glinted on the mantel between us, like a small, stubborn star. And then Grace Whitfield did something that broke my heart and healed it in the same breath. She smiled. Through the tears, through the ruined makeup, through 6 years of pain, she smiled. You've changed, she said softly. The boy I married would have kissed me and worried about the mess later. The boy you married grew up, I said. He had to. She reached up, wiped her eyes, and squared her shoulders. And for the first time all night, she didn't look like a runaway bride. She looked like a woman who'd finally found solid ground. Then I'll see you in the daylight, Samson Cole, she said. She turned toward the door. Then she stopped, her hand on the knob, and looked back at me over her shoulder. Wait up for me, she whispered. And then she was gone, out into the rain, into the night, into the hardest morning of both our lives. And I stood alone in my living room, heart hammering, one terrifying question echoing in the silence she left behind. Would she really come back? Or had I just let her walk out of my life for the second time? I didn't sleep that night, not for a second. I sat in the chair by the window, watching the rain turn to mist, then watching the mist turn gold as the sun came up. Somewhere across town, a church was being decorated. Flowers were being arranged. A man named Preston Marshall was probably tying his tie, straightening his collar, having no idea that his whole world had knocked on my door at 11 p.m. and whispered another man's name. I stared at my phone until my eyes burned. No call, no text, nothing. By 9 o'clock, the doubt had crawled all the way into my bones. She's not coming. She read the letter, she felt the old feelings, and now, in the light of day, she's remembering everything she'd lose. Her family, her name, her whole life. By 10, I'd convinced myself I'd been a fool. I'd asked a woman to blow up her entire world for a farmer's son. Again, what kind of man does that twice? At 10:47, I put on my coat. I don't fully know why. Maybe I just needed to see it for myself. Maybe 6 years of running had finally run out, and I was tired of being the man who let her go without a fight. Whatever it was, I got in my truck and I drove toward that church. Not to stop the wedding, I told myself, just to know, to watch her walk in on Preston's arm, and finally, truly, let her go. But I never made it to the church, because halfway there, on the road that ran past that old broken oak tree between our family's land, I saw her, Grace, standing under our tree, still in a dress, but not the wedding dress, a simple blue one, her hair down, no veil, no church, no Preston. I slammed on the brakes so hard the truck skidded on the gravel. I got out slowly, my heart in my throat, and I walked toward her, the way you walk toward something you're afraid isn't real. Grace, my voice shook. What? Where's? I told him, she said. I stopped. This morning, before the ceremony, I stood in front of Preston in that big beautiful church, in that big beautiful dress, and I told him the truth. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. I told him I loved someone else, that I'd always loved someone else, That I couldn't marry him and give him half a heart when he deserved a whole one. What did he say? A sad smile touched her lips. He said he'd known for a long time. He said, her voice cracked. He said, I always felt like I was holding a door for someone who never fully walked through it. And then he took off his boutonniere, and he kissed my forehead, and he told me to go be happy. She wiped her eyes. He's a good man, Samson. He deserved better than what I gave him. But he let me go. I could barely breathe. And your father? At that, Grace's face changed, and she stepped aside. And that's when I saw him, Richard Whitfield, standing a few feet behind her, in his fine gray suit, looking somehow smaller than I remembered. Older. The man who'd once poured himself a drink and dismantled my entire future without blinking, now standing under the broken oak, unable to meet my eyes. I froze. He drove me here, Grace said quietly. After I called off the wedding, my mother told him everything. About the letter, about what he did to you, about the scholarship, the job offers, all of it. She looked at her father, and I told him I was choosing you, whether he approved or not. That I'd rather live poor and honest with you than rich and empty without you. Richard finally lifted his head, and when he looked at me, I saw something I'd never seen on that man's face in my entire life. Shame. Samson, he said. My name sounded strange in his mouth. Careful. I owe you something I don't know how to give. I said nothing. I'd waited 6 years for this moment, and now that it was here, I didn't have a single word ready. I told myself I was protecting her. He went on, his voice unsteady. I told myself a boy with nothing could only bring her down. That love wasn't enough to survive on. He swallowed hard. And then I watched my daughter spend 6 years half alive. I watched her almost marry a man she didn't love, just to make me happy. And this morning, in that church, I saw her face when she talked about you. His eyes filled. No amount of money I ever gave her put that look on her face. Only you did. He took a step toward me. I was wrong. I broke something good because I was too proud and too afraid to understand it. And I will spend the rest of my life sorry for the years I stole from you both. He extended his hand. I looked at it. This hand that had once slid a folder across a desk to destroy me. This hand that had cost me 6 years and a wife and a piece of my soul. And then I looked at Grace. At the tears streaming down her face, at the hope in her eyes. And I understood something my father, that quiet man with dirt under his nails, tried to teach me my whole life without ever saying it out loud. Bitterness is a field you can plant, but nothing ever grows there. So I took Richard Whitfield's hand, and I shook it. Grace let out a sob that was half a laugh, and then she was in my arms, and I was holding her the way I'd dreamed of holding her for 6 long, lonely years. She fit against me exactly the way she used to, like she'd never left, like the fence and the folder and all those wasted years had only been a bad dream we were finally waking up from. You waited up for me, she whispered into my chest. I'd wait 100 years, I said. I'd wait forever. We were married under that same broken oak tree 6 months later. It was a small wedding. No marble floors, no grand ballroom, just a handful of people who truly loved us, standing in a field that smelled like morning. Grace wore a simple white dress. I wore my father's old watch and a new ring, though she made me promise to keep the $2 one forever, and I did. It sits on our mantel to this day. Her mother cried through the whole thing. Her father walked her down the grassy aisle, and when he placed her hand in mine, he didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His tears said everything his pride never let him say for years. And on a small table beside us, in a simple wooden frame, was a photograph of a woman I never got to meet. My mother. So she could be there too. So the woman who gave her life so I could have mine, could finally see her son marry the love of his. My father stood beside me, that old unopened Bible in his weathered hands, and for the first time in my whole life, I saw him smile all the way to his eyes. People ask me sometimes if I forgive them. Her father, the years, the lie I told to save her. And I tell them forgiveness isn't quite the word. I just finally stopped surviving and started living, in the daylight, with nothing to hide. Still her, still me, still us. The girl next door climbed a fence for me when she was 7 years old. And it only took us 12 years, one cruel father, 6 years of silence, and a $2 ring to finally stay on the same side of it. For good. Now, before you go, let me leave you with something to think about. Samson lied to the woman he loved and let her hate him for 6 years because he believed he was protecting her from a life of struggle. He thought love meant sacrifice. He thought letting her go was the most loving thing he could do. But that lie cost them both 6 years they could never get back. So here's my question for you, and I want you to really sit with it before you answer. If you truly love someone, do you have the right to make the hardest decision for them, to walk away for their own good? Or does real love mean trusting them enough to let them choose the struggle with you, even if it means they might get hurt? Was Samson a hero for sacrificing his own happiness, or did he steal 6 years of Grace's life by deciding what was best for her without ever asking? Think about it. Think about it again. And when you've decided, tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that real love is worth fighting for in the daylight, do me a favor. Tap that like button, and don't forget to turn on the channel notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. Because the next one just might change the way you love.